From the nation's capital, this is the Fly Fishing Consultant Podcast with your host, Rob Snowhite.
This is the 280th episode of the Fly Fishing Consultant Podcast. My name is Rob Snowhite. This episode features Svend Diesel. I'm a curious guy. I wanted to find out more about someone that I follow on social media. This is the story of a guy that looks like a Viking that lives in Utah and ties flies while entertaining thousands on a daily basis. I really enjoyed this interview. I felt like we were hanging out on an early Sunday morning in my living room. So this is an early Sunday morning conversation about fly fishing, and it just happens to be brought to you by Traeger. Traeger brings unrivaled wood-fired flavor to the table, unlocking your food's true potential. No matter which grill you select, Traeger's 6-in-1 ability means you can grill, smoke, bake, roast, braise, and barbecue with pure hardwood flavor. I'm currently playing around with brining bone-in, skin-on chicken thighs and then dusting them with a little bit of the Traeger signature dry rubs. Life is too short to be eating oven-cooked food, so go out and get yourself a Traeger today. Thanksgiving's around the corner. Don't ever eat oven-made turkey again. And this is a shout out to Chef Chad Wells of Baltimore. He's one of the people that influenced me to get a Traeger. He finally caught his first fish on a fly rod yesterday, thanks to Austin Murphy. So let's go find out what Sven is up to, who he is, where he is, and what he does. All right, so we have Svend Diesel with us. You go by a different name in real life. Your real name is Eric?
Yeah, my first name's Eric, middle name's Sven, the last name's Svensson. So there you go. My social security number is... No, I'm kidding.
Well, I thought we were going to give that out for a second there. All right, and do you have any celebrity doppelgangers for those that do not follow you on social media that might want to put a face with the voice?
No, not really. I mean, I think if you know me, you know me. If you don't already, then you should get to know me. So nice. I don't.
And you are in Provo, Utah?
Close to it. I live just a little bit north of there. I've lived in Provo for, most of my life, 36 years, and just recently moved a little bit north.
Okay.
About 7 minutes, so haven't moved too far in my life.
So you still got your regular grocery stores and other places you can still hit up?
Oh yeah. And I work still, my job is in Provo, and so I still drive over pretty much to the same area I grew up in my whole life and lived for the last, 30 plus years. So
okay. Now, being from Utah, there's not a whole lot of Vikings there. You seem to be a bit of a Viking yourself.
Oh, well, that's kind of a long story, but my grandparents come from Denmark. They immigrated after World War II. So I spent a lot of summers traveling with my grandma over to, hang out. She usually went over for about 3-4 weeks every summer. And so I spent a lot of time, I didn't go every summer. I wasn't the privileged grandchild, but I've probably been over there, 6-7 times. I lived there for 2 years doing a mission for my church. And so I feel very connected with Denmark, which, is connected with Scandinavia. And the Viking just came about because that was just kind of made sense.
I dig it. All right. So Viking that fishes. Did you ever fish when you were over there?
No, and that's what I kind of, I got into the fishing sport later in life. Funny story, growing up, I don't remember catching fish. We went camping a ton as a family, and I don't remember catching a lot of fish. And I remember in high school, guys were like, let's go fishing. I'm like, yeah, right. Like, that's just a waste of time. I just remember looking at that red and white bubble, sit out there for hours and hours and hours, and thought it was the most boring thing in the world. So, fast forward 20 years, I got kids. We go up, we catch, a bunch of fish, got kind of back into it. And I took my dad and I said, hey, how come we didn't catch fish like this when I was a kid? And he goes, well, that's because I stopped putting hooks on. And I said, what? He goes, yeah, like the one time your sister hooked your other sister in the shoulder, and then your other sister hooked the other in the ear, and then you hooked your sister in the nose. So I just stopped putting hooks on. And I said, well, so we sat out there. I remember watching that bubble for hours. And he goes, oh, it was great. I could sit there in the hammock and take a nap and didn't have to worry. So that was my experience fishing growing up. So I didn't really get into fishing or fly fishing until, my mid 30s.
Wow. How long have you been tying flies?
So I think it was like 2015, 2016, kind of got back into fly fishing. I took a course up at Sundance Mountain Resort. It was a summer long, come as many times or as little times as you want if you bought the season pass for fly tying. And they had some phenomenal instructors. And so that's about 5 years ago?
That's pretty nuts. You've accomplished quite a lot in those short years.
Oh, well, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I think I've picked up a few skills and a few bad skills. So it's always about trying something new and learning something else. And my hobbies usually last 2 to 5 years, and I go all in. So we're about approaching that 5-year mark. So who knows? Maybe next year I'll be into quilting. You never know.
I would like to learn how to crochet, make my own hats and gloves and stuff.
Dude, I can teach you anytime. When my grandma got really, really sick towards the end of her life, I'd spend a couple hours over at her house, and it kind of got monotonous just hearing all these stories about people I didn't know. And so I said, hey, Grandma, will you teach me how to crochet? So I made beanies when I was visiting her, and it's a lot of fun.
I don't know if I need sharp needles. Fly tying with scissors is dangerous enough for me.
There you go.
So what other things have you gotten really into then, besides tying and crochet?
So I was really into, I guess you would say in college, it would be weightlifting. And then that transitioned into cycling, where I was cycling 200 plus miles a week for a couple of years. And then that transitioned into, I guess you'd call it recreational sports shooting. Basically, I got a little bit into firearms, was a volunteer up at the gun range, got a few NRA certified training so I could, be a range safety officer. And I think it was in like 2007, it got a little bit too expensive. Got into a few other shorter hobbies, and then I kind of connected the outdoors with the shooting and got into hunting, and then that kind of led into fly fishing.
So you got a bunch of homemade bird skins you can pluck from if you need feathers now?
Yeah, I don't do that. I got a lot of people. I just buy my, bird feathers or, animal skins or hair from the people that wash and dye it. I've never gotten into the harvesting my own hair or fur or feathers. I tried it once when I had to replace my flock of chickens. I was like, oh, I could use these feathers. And then, when I chopped off their heads, I was like, there was blood everywhere. And I'm like, I'm not washing this. So we just had tacos instead.
So you've also raised birds.
My wife, at our last house we kind of got into, I guess you'd call it urban farming, where you've got a little like 20 by 30 section of, that you garden. And then she grew up with chickens. And so she wanted, fresh eggs. And I was against it because I thought it was stupid. But then we had a snail problem at our house, which, that doesn't sound like anything major. But I found out that they started eating the garden, and that was super annoying. And I found out that chickens eat snails. So I said, well, let's try it. And they ate all the snails and, all my plants in the backyard. And so then, I built like a container area for them, and we really got into it. And it was really awesome for our kids, teaching them, where food comes from, the circle of life in a way. But when we moved, we didn't continue with the chickens.
Do the animals out west try to eat all your birds?
And that's why we didn't continue, because we moved to an area it's not more rural, but we have more predators where we live. Whereas before, it was 3/4 mile to the hillside where it turned into Forest Service. And I never had an issue with raccoons or badgers or mountain lions.
Badgers.
But I heard, I constantly, we knew all the people that had chickens in our area, because it was kind of a battle whether or not you could have chickens type thing, because we definitely couldn't have roosters. But so I knew a lot of the people, and it was interesting to see that like literally 5 houses away was the borderline of where a raccoon would come and try and get into your chickens.
Well, we have bears now in our neighborhood because of
Shut
COVID.
up.
And we're only about 10 to 15 miles from the White House. It's just been so quiet. There's bears now.
Oh man, that's
have-
awesome in a way.
Yeah, we have a lot of owls, and our neighbor had chickens illegally because you need to be zoned for space. And hers all got eaten by the owls. You can hear great horned owls every night in our neighborhood.
I'm totally jealous because I've only seen an owl in the wild once.
They're enormous.
Oh, I'm jealous, man. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
But they'll eat the chickens, huh?
Yeah. I'm trying to get my neighbor to raise chickens. His backyard's huge. I'm like, dude, put a coop in. That's less lawn you got to mow. And then I said, bring them over here and they'll eat all the stuff in my garden.
Yeah, all our neighbors loved us too because having chickens is a little bit annoying, but I clean the coop every other week. We threw out fresh cedar. We would give dozens of eggs to all our neighbors.
That's awesome.
So bribe them because you could only have so many chickens per square foot of your property. I can't remember what it is, but we had about 5 chickens and it was all we needed and a lot of fun. So
very cool. Maybe our next house will have more room to do it.
Yeah, I don't know. Less time to fish if you got chickens, right?
Well, I also want Indian running ducks. They eat a lot of slugs and snails too, but they stand up vertically. They walk around standing up. They're pretty cool looking.
Huh, I'll have to Google that.
Yeah, Indian running duck. They're really cute. Well, let's talk about fishing more. We can go on gardening for hours. So you've got quite a bit of followers on your social media.
I got some. Yeah,
man.
There's a few crazy people out in the world that I guess want to follow me.
So when did you go from starting to tie flies to starting to share them on social media?
So that was back, and that's how I kind of know when I got into fly tying, because during the course of that summer, we all have our friends and family Instagram, where we share pictures of what we're doing cool. I got it heavily into fishing, and people were telling me to stop posting pictures of fishing. Like I'd have friends text me and say, "Hey, what are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm working." "Oh, you sure you're not on the river fishing?" And it just got kind of annoying, but I could see how they were annoyed by all of a sudden the feed just starts fishing. And so I just said, screw this. Let's just make another account. And then I was like, well, what am I going to put on it? And I was tying flies at the time, or learning how to. So I said, why not just start, posting pictures? And then you start following people that are posting pictures. And so then you getting these, like, not collaborations, but, hey, you tied this. Hey, check out what I saw so-and-so tie. I tied this. And you meet a lot of friends that way. And it's a lot of fun. And I guess that's kind of where it evolved into basically having a quote-unquote fishing account, mainly to save my family from seeing everything I do. But now they all follow my fishing account. So I guess that didn't really matter.
At what point did somebody see one of your flies and was like, dude, you got something going on here? Like, you're a little bit above others.
Oh, I don't know if anyone's ever seen a fly and said I'm above any others. I just, my flies are mediocre, and I do a lot of Photoshop with them and smoke and mirrors, illusions. You got to, increase your sharpness, decrease your contrast, and, just make them look pretty for the gram. That's what I do.
Okay.
I don't know. There's a lot of great tires out there, way better than me. I have a lot of fun with it, and I get occasional comments. Hey, that looks awesome, or like this is perfect, but I see all the flaws. So I don't ever consider anything perfect.
What are some of the techniques you had to teach yourself to tie the flies you want to tie?
So the way I did that is I had that course up at Sundance, and they had some phenomenal instructors up there. I learned how to whip finish from, Brian Wimmer. He's the Sundance fly fishing guy. And, Grant Bench taught me all about feathers. And there were a few other guys there. And it was really amazing. But then once that ended, I had purchased a vise throughout that summer and started getting into materials. And then I kind of turned to YouTube. And I took a little bit of a different approach. And, this is what I recommend to anybody. Sorry, we're getting off on a tangent, but I get messages quite a bit like, hey, how could I progress? Or how did you progress as a tyer? And I said, all I did is I YouTubed pheasant tail nymph, pretty standard nymph fly. And I'd watch 10 different people tie it. And I'd tie it exactly how they tied it. Literally follow their YouTube video. And then over time, you learn a lot of different tricks and techniques that aren't necessarily supposed to be, specific for that fly. But you can, all of a sudden you're like, hey, I could do that on my woolly bugger. I could do that on my popper. I could do that on anything. And then that's where the kind of the fun, when you learn how to do a technique and think of how it can apply to a different fly that you've already tied. And the only way you get those tips and tricks is by watching or, seeing a lot of different guys tie. Because you pick up on it. Most of it's the same, but then you just hear this little tidbit in the middle and you're like, oh my gosh, why haven't I been doing that?
Were there any things that were intimidating or took longer to learn how to do?
Oh, I'm still intimidated by a lot of flies. I hate tying dry flies. Well, let me rephrase that. I like tying dry flies that fish, and usually my dry flies that fish aren't very pretty.
Photographing, do you fish those?
Oh yeah. I'd say 95% of them are either fished by me or someone else. I give away a lot of flies, and so it's not always that I fish them, or I'll have somebody message me and say, hey, I saw this fly, like how much? And I'm just like, dude, I'll just send it to you, because if you like it that much, but make sure you fish it. Just don't have it sit somewhere in a drawer. We tie flies to fish, and that's why we do it and why it's a lot of fun, because there's something at the end of getting you in the river. And I don't know, it just feels good having a box full of flies that you tied.
I have trouble with dries. I wanted to learn how to do parachutes during COVID, and I spent about a week. I was like, man, I need to just put a piece of foam on top of these instead of a hair parachute.
Foam is awesome.
Yes.
But yeah, parachutes, like, I think I have a very OCD nature. And like when I mentioned, I take a pheasant tail nymph and tie it 10 different ways. I didn't just tie one and say, okay, that's fine. I tied it until it looked like how they tied it. I had to, like, I guess my wife says I've got a little bit of a perfectionist mentality sometimes in certain things. And that's one of them. So when I tie like a parachute, if I have like one fiber sticking down, or the dubbing didn't taper perfectly, I'm just like, I just toss it in a drawer, and I've got a drawer of flies that are just, I don't consider
the rejects.
I don't know. I'm not happy with them.
Yeah, I usually just give those to people.
Yeah, I started doing that, but then all of a sudden they're like, hey, you're Svend Diesel. Like, hey, oh, and then I'm like, wait a second, I can't give them a botched fly.
Right. And is your wife cool with having all this fly fishing and tying stuff? And then before that was other stuff?
Absolutely not. She's okay. Like the road biking, she was totally fine with, except she didn't like when I was gone for like, 6 to 9 hours on a really long ride.
She liked you in shape though.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And fly tying, let's be honest, we get a little bit overweight. That's kind of where the next hobby might be. It might be getting back in shape, but I just need some motivation. Yeah. You don't really burn the calories, spinning the vise. Yeah. She's okay with it. She's not okay if I'm, on social media too much and not paying attention to my kids, or, she's never really barked at me for purchasing fly tying materials. She's been very supportive, really great, but, we didn't think it would evolve to what it is, or I never thought I'd be this deeply invested into fly tying.
Does she get upset when fly tying materials end up in parts of the house where they're not supposed to be? There's marabou and crystal flash everywhere in our house, if you look.
Yep. So my last house, the carpet was crystal flash and iced up, and it was fun. I took a UV light and shined
The
it on the
floor.
carpet. You
Yeah,
could
if
see
I
it
do that
all.
right now, yeah, my entire carpet lights up chartreuse. Yeah, it's crazy. There's glow bug yarn down there. There's rubber. My kid's doing it now. She's
Well, let
enjoying
me
everything down there glows.
a little tip for anybody out there that wants a cleaner fly tying room is I have a vacuum right at my desk now. So I would say 99% of my materials stay on my desk. You always get the ones that fall in your lap. I have a mat underneath where I sit now so that those don't go into the wood, or it wouldn't have gone into the carpet. And all I do is every 3 to dozen bugs, depending on what you're tying, I just vacuum it up.
Little shop vac?
I used the shop vac, and then I kind of took over. My wife had a little Dyson, little handheld Dyson, and that seems to work a little better because the shop vac just took up a lot of room, and I was in a minimal space at the last house. And so I kind of took that over, and it works phenomenal, and that's what I use now. And I don't track as much material around the house.
Nice.
And so I recommend having a vacuum. Just make sure the vent is not pointing towards your material on the side. It's one of those things like when you sneeze and feathers go everywhere.
Yep.
Well, I've also had the vent pointing the wrong way, and next thing I know, there's rabbit everywhere. So
my kid just found something on the floor. All right, you can go now. I'm taking it. Ow. Out. How many kids do you have?
3.
Wow.
So.
And are they all going to school in person or online?
So we are, depending on where you live in Utah, we are different. My kids are early out every day. So their early out day is now every day. But if you lived 5 minutes or 10 minutes south, then you'd be on an AB schedule. So your kids would go 2 days a week, all day. But, masks are required, no drinking fountains. The recess, my boy's like, oh, recess sucks, Dad. We have to walk 6 feet away around a track 4 times, and then we go back in. And I'm like, dude, we all have to make sacrifices. You're lucky you get to go see people because there's a lot of kids that aren't going to school.
That's us. So I was just going to take my kid out to Colorado to my in-laws' condo for the fall. Just go out there for 2 months. But since school starts at 8:30 Eastern, we'd have to be ready to go at 6:30 Mountain Time. And I was like, that doesn't sound fun.
Well, we're seeing a lot more California, Washington plates here because I'm out on the road all day driving. And you're seeing a lot of, people are moving here for that reason or coming temporarily for the fall. And I was like, yeah, right. Why would you up and move? But I'm seeing it. And so it's a thing. So, go to Colorado and, I'm only 8 hours from depending on where you're at, and we can go fish.
Heck yeah. We're in Breckenridge. It's straight off 70.
Yeah, it's about 7 hours, 6 hours from me.
Yeah, 24-hour driving for me.
Oh.
It's 24 hours.
Well, we got the Green River in between us, so we could just meet there.
I've never fished west of, Carbondale or Glenwood Springs area. I've never fished west of Aspen, sort of, or Roaring Fork. You ever been out to Grand Junction? I'll have to get that on the schedule.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about your tying. What's your setup? What vise are you tying on? In a couple of years, have you figured out any tools that you prefer over others?
Kind of known for not using the same vise and being a tool junkie. So you just got yourself on a long tangent. How much time do we have?
As long as you want. What else do people have to do right now?
Yeah, I don't know. I could be sleeping right now. That's something I could be doing, but no. So I have it's not just with fly tying tools. The last house we were in, we remodeled it completely. And so I said, hey, should I pay this guy $4,000 to do the hardwood floors in the whole upstairs? Or should I buy the material for $1,400 and buy all the tools? So I bought all the tools and did everything myself. So in fly tying, I don't know. I wouldn't say I get bored, but I think that there's a tool that helps on every fly. people, I get this message quite a bit. Hey, what's your favorite vise? I see you tie on multiple vices, and I go, well, what flies are you tying? What hook are you using? Because I'm not going to use a vise that I know won't hold a 4/0 hook if I'm tying bass bugs. And, I'm really cranking down, wanting to, get them down. I'm going to use either my T-Rex, or I've also been using a lot of this peak vise lately. But if I'm tying little, midges, I've got a different vise for that I prefer. If I'm going to be spinning woolly buggers, the Norvise is super fun because you just fling it and it just spins forever. So when it comes to specific tools, I love bobbins, the way they feel in your hand and how everyone is different. I recently ordered some from South Africa. I don't know his name. It's J something. It's his company's J Vice, and I don't know if you've ever seen his bobbins.
No.
They are. You look at it and you're like, "What the freak is that?" It is. The tip is angled at a 45-degree angle. It's got adjustment screws. It's kind of like a, compared to most fly tying bobbins, this is definitely an artsy looking piece, almost like you'd put it in a glass box to just admire as art. But it literally holds in my hand and functions better than most bobbins I've used. It's the craziest thing. I got turned on to it from a guy in the UK, and when I saw he posted, I'm like, what is that and where did you get it? And it was, bobbins range from $8 to, $55, I think, on average. The higher end ones are 30 plus. This one was $33 shipped.
It's not bad the amount of time you're going to spend on using it.
No, in everything about it, I just love. Another really cool tool that I've seen, or a lot of people message me about, is the Stonfo makes a dubbing brush, dubbing loop tool. It's called the Elite Roto Twister. So when you don't have tension on your thread, it separates it. And then as soon as you pull down or let the weight of the tool pull it down, it holds your material for you. So you don't have material slipping out of your dubbing loop. And so then what I do is I push material up towards the top, and then I can open it up and it still holds it. I open it just a little bit. And sometimes if you're using like other dubbing loop tools, your material falls out as soon as you open it. With this, it doesn't. And then it spins on a ball bearing, so you can almost over twist your material, and then the head rotates. It's kind of hard to describe, just YouTube it or watch people use it, but it's super, super awesome. Probably one of my more favorite tools.
And you're a big dude, right?
I'm 6'4", 230.
So how do tools fit in your hands, like scissors wise? Do you have to have scissors where your hands can fit through?
Well, I get my scissors custom made out of Pakistan for me, for bigger holes and longer blades. So I actually use an 11.5-inch scissor, but to most people, since my hands are so large, it looks normal.
It's like when Andre the Giant.
Yeah, I'm just messing with you.
Him with the Molson can.
No, but that guy's massive.
Yeah, where my neighbor Don holds a can of Stella, it looks like he's holding a baby bottle in his hands because the dude's enormous. We're always like, oh yeah, it's like Andre the Giant holding that can of Molson.
The only thing is, I think I just use scissors that you can get at most fly fishing shops. I just don't like keeping them in my hand. I know a lot of tyers do, but I'm never in such a rush that 7 seconds to pick up my scissors is an issue.
I feel the weight difference. When I put my scissors down and then go to the vise, my hand feels awkward. Sort of like if I take my wedding ring off my left hand, I can feel the weight difference. It just doesn't.
I could get that. I could understand that. And yeah, so I think maybe it's one of those things I never had that as a habit in the beginning, and I don't like rings. And I know a lot of guys just keep that through either their ring finger or middle finger or whatever finger you keep it through. And I hate having like a ring on my finger. And so maybe that's just a personal pet peeve of feeling that all the time. But when you just pick them up and snip and then put them down, I don't notice that awkwardness, I guess, for me personally. But it would save a lot of time keeping them in my hand. I even tried those, like the spring-loaded ones, that are more a micro tip. Have you seen those?
Though I've had those for years from biology.
Yeah, and I tried those, and that feels a little bit less like annoying in my hand, but I still just pick them up, put them down, and don't ever drop them on the tips.
Yeah, no. I definitely have dropped some scissors in my carpet, and they have just missed my bare feet sometimes.
I had one land between my toes.
Oh my gosh.
And I just got thinking, I'm like, okay, this is something I gotta, take a little bit more serious.
Yeah. Because I can't go to the hospital these days. I'm not getting COVID over stupid. I took all my daughter's scissors away when COVID started. Because she'll just go cut random things up. And I was like, you know what? We're not having you cut your finger up by accident. So we're going to take all your scissors away.
So I had to go visit the hospital here recently due to an injury. And I was actually really impressed with the protocols, the safety they were taking. It was actually, because I was kind of nervous. I'm like, hey, babe, I think my elbow might be broken, but I really don't want to go to the hospital. She's like, you're going to the hospital. I'm like, I don't want to go get COVID. And then I went down there and it was like, oh, hey, I could be here. This isn't that bad. So hopefully that's the case in most hospitals across the country. But here locally, I had a phenomenal experience. So.
And you're not out in the boonies enough that you've got some hospital where you show up and there's chickens and pigs in the waiting room next to you.
No, it's a pretty big hospital.
My cousin was married to a woman that was from rural Pennsylvania. And when she broke her arm, she went in there and it was barn animals waiting too.
Are you serious? That's crazy.
Yep.
Oh, man. No, this was, I guess you'd say Western medicine. They just added on like a multi-million wing of the hospital. So I do know that they had before the addition, 47 beds for women who had just had a baby. Because when my third child was born, the nurse comes in and says, okay, there's 5 people in the hospital right now that are, they're in labor, and we have 3 beds left. So unless you want to sleep in the OR for the next 3 days, get this baby out.
Wow. Also, speaking of Utah, do you have a pretty strong community of tires and fly shops and employees that are all just a community?
Yes and no. There's a definite presence of a lot of tires out here, a lot of people that fly fish. I don't know how to describe it. It's unique from what people tell me. I don't know anything different, but a lot of people say it's unique because it's almost like everyone's in their own groups. So it's hard to penetrate into a group, but once you're in, you're in. The issue I have, I'm not really in many groups, or I can't really go tie at the shop, every Wednesday night or, whatever, just because my Wednesday nights is right now soccer. A month ago it was baseball. And then if it's not that, I'm doing homework or, doing work. I just don't have that luxury of, and that's where I think the social media aids me, because it's not a local fly shop club I'm in. It's a global community of people that love tying flies and fly fishing.
Do you get recognized when you go in a fly shop?
Like, what do you like?
Well, the employees probably know you, but anyone in there like, I know you from Instagram.
Well, no, I know all these guys from just going in the shop. So I get recognized. Hey, Eric. Hey, Sven. Hey, how's it going? Hey, good. How's your Tuesday? Because I usually stop in once a week. So it's, just, hey, I really like that picture you posted last week of your fish. Oh, cool. Yeah. What else is new? What's new in the shop? So I wouldn't say that. I have been stopped randomly at a few gas stations. Like, you want to hear a real funny one?
Bring it on.
I'm sitting there because I drive a van my own business is automotive products, and it says Svensson on the side of it, 'cause that's the name of the company. And it's like 3 foot by 25 foot in red on white. So pretty noticeable. So I'm sitting there filling up at the gas station. You know, it's a 45-gallon tank or 40-gallon tank, so it takes a minute. So I'm just sitting there just holding the gas, you know, pumping gas, and this truck starts driving off, and it stops and backs up, and the window goes down. I go, this is weird. And this guy goes, hey, you're Svend Diesel, aren't you? And I said, yeah. He's like, awesome, man. And then peels off.
That's pretty cool.
I'm like out in the middle of freaking nowhere. And I called my wife. I'm like, you're not going to believe just what just happened. And she's like, what? And I'm like, I told her the story, and she's like, you're ridiculous. But it was kind of a cool little thing. But I was like, hey, next time say, hey, I'm, you know, Joe Schmo. Nice to meet you. Like, do you want to get out and talk for a minute? Or, you know, I have no idea who he was, or would have been. I always enjoyed talking fishing and flies. So
that's pretty cool.
But, yeah, I've had a few of those experiences that was kind of fun. But other than that, it's just the regular shop, regular guys, and the other shop in town. I used to have lunch with the owners. You know, once we tried to go to tacos every
Tuesday.
We said once a month, but it was probably 3-4 times a year.
How are the tacos in Utah?
Well, the shop they introduced me to, they're amazing. I always drove by it and thought it was like a little shed, but apparently it is the best tacos. Yeah.
The taco place up the street, I don't even get the tacos. I get the sandwiches. They're so good. Taco Bamba.
Yeah, that's one advantage to being on the road all the time is I find a lot of really, really, really good food that I think's good. And then I'm like, hey, babe, we got to go when we go up paddleboarding or fishing up at this lake. Like, let's stop and get these tacos or these sandwiches. And she's never as impressed as I am. But we definitely have some good honey holes here for food. So
very cool. There's a lot of outdoor industries also just based out there.
Yeah, there's a ton of that. And that's, I think, because, you know, this is the I can't remember. I used to have this memorized. There's so many national parks. I can't remember how many it is, but I can be in Arches National Park in 3 hours from my house. I can be in the Uinta National Forest in an hour. I can be in Jackson Hole, the Tetons, in 5 hours. I can be in Zion's National Park in 4.5. I mean, there's so much here that's so close that it's mind blowing. And those are just the main parks. I mean, there's so much to do outdoors. I mean, I'm literally looking at the side of a mountain right now that, is probably to get to a trailhead is 150 yards. And then once I connect onto there, I can go anywhere on this mountain.
Yeah, I'm stuck in suburbia.
Yeah, so you're welcome to come out here. I think my neighbor's house is going to be going for sale, so just let me know.
Heck yeah, man. I wouldn't mind selling this one. I think my wife can work from anywhere about now, if she's allowed to.
Yeah, I think that's the main thing is a lot of people learn how to work online or remote now, and so where you live isn't going to be as critical. But, how many kids do you have?
Just one.
Just one. See, that's the thing is uprooting your kid is, we just uprooted ours 15 minutes, and I didn't realize how hard it is because we don't move that often. My wife grew up moving all the time, so she got used to it. But like that first move, holy crap, it was tough that first week of school when they didn't know anybody. But they're adapting. So
one of the reasons we bought this house is there was a direct bus to the Pentagon. It used to take my wife an hour each day, one way, just to get to the Pentagon. And her quality of life has improved because she's not sitting for 2 hours a day in traffic.
Yeah, for sure.
That was other places we had looked at. The commute was just too bad. And now DC, no one's commuting, so no one really has to pay these crazy prices for housing and apartments to live here. They're all, again, leaving and doing it somewhere else.
Yeah, I've heard that. Yeah, I've heard that that's been going on. I think, in New York City, they're trying to get people to stay or move back or...
Apparently it's just homeless people everywhere. in New York because
Really?
people are moving. I guess yesterday there was some monster line at U-Haul to get out of New York City.
Huh. That's
I've got
crazy.
clients down here that live in Manhattan, and they're just living with their families.
Yeah, my sister moved. She came out here for COVID. She lived down in Brooklyn, and then now she moved back, packed up, and now she's here. So, but she says until her company decides, they're not going to decide till January. She might have to move back. So she's remote until January.
Well, enjoy the outdoors. So you can pretty much do any outdoor activity your heart desires out there.
Well, time and money. I mean, there's some outdoor stuff that can get pretty expensive, but a pair of hiking shoes and a stick and some fishing line. You can do whatever. Yeah, there's mountain biking. Like we do a lot of mountain biking. We do a lot of paddle boarding, kayaking, hiking. Occasionally, I get to fish with the family, but usually I go out solo because they get sick of waiting for me when it gets on, and I'm just out there for hours. Yeah, there's a lot of outdoor activities.
That's a pretty cool place to live.
Yeah, and then you got skiing in the winter, snowboarding. That's what if anything, that's probably our main hobby is skiing, just because of how expensive it is. So we that's what we work for and work towards, and the kids love it, and so that's what we do here. Pretty much as a family, we're up at the resort. We try to get up every weekend. So.
And I hear that Utah has different type of snow than anywhere else. That it's a certain type of powder.
I'd say Utah and Colorado are similar, but it has to do with, the dry air here. So out by you guys, it's so humid, even in the winter, that, it snows, and by 4 hours later, it's turned to, ice or hard snow.
When it snows out here. I haven't used a shovel since 2016.
No, so here in Utah, because of that dry climate, it's very rare that we get wet snow. That's becoming more so, it seems, in recent years, though. But when you have a dry flake, you got 4 to 12 inches of a light snow. You can scoop that up with your hand and throw it up in the air, and it just falls like glitter. Well, imagine skiing in that.
You make a snowball as a kid here, and you got to change your gloves. It's like slushy, wet, and nasty. And that's what kills so many old dudes trying to shovel their driveways. They get heart attacks.
That makes sense. Yeah, see, there's some snowstorms that we can't even make a snowman out of.
It's just powder?
Yeah, so like the kids, when it snows, they get kind of frustrated when it doesn't pack. And so I don't even know how often that happens that we get wet snow. I'd say it's like one in maybe half the time or 2/3 of the time. It's usually drier than wetter. But when it's wet, it's nothing like what you're used to, I'm assuming.
Yeah, it's pretty gross. What about fishing in the winter? Do you get out much when it snows to go fish? That's one of my favorites.
So, yeah, I'd say I don't fish much in the summer due to work. That's my busy time of the year. So I'm a big fall into winter. That's when, I'd say I go fishing more. It also, there's less people out. And then winter fishing, I would say up until last year, if you fish our local river here, the Provo River, if you go on a Saturday, you're going to be seeing a guy around every bend, and you're going to have people dropping in on you all day. It is just so packed. And then in the wintertime, you'd see maybe 3 people out. But last year it was still packed. It was crazy. Not as packed as the summer, but I drive past all the turnoffs. I know where guys park, and I'd see on any given day 20, 30 anglers out in the middle of the winter.
What are you going to fill your fly box with in the wintertime?
So in the wintertime, I fish a lot of if I'm fishing the river, I pretty much all you need is a black leech or woolly bugger, or maybe a couple different other variations of colors. And then I fish a lot of small nymphs, and you can never go wrong with a sow bug on this local stretch. But 3 years ago, I got into ice fishing, out on lakes, and I absolutely love it because I treat it almost like how I would a river. I'm constantly moving, constantly adapting. And then, we use a variety of different, I use bait. I'm not opposed to bait fishermen. About the only time I use bait is when I'm fishing with the kids or, ice fishing, because mealworms go a long ways on the lakes. But we also use a lot of flies that have been really, really effective under the ice.
Did you tie up any little ice jigs?
Yeah, I tied up ice jigs. I've resined, made my own little ice jig bodies with resins. I tie a lot of different bugs for different conditions, but usually it's just something with a little bit of shine and glimmer that attracts the attention. We do quite a number of like chironomid type nymphs when we're ice fishing. So,
do you tie buzzers much? Those are fun.
Yeah, so I tie a lot of buzzers, but I wouldn't say I tie a lot. I tied a lot. I don't fish them as much. I don't know why. I haven't had the luck that I know a lot of guys do. But I have good luck on them in the spring and in the fall. But the rest of the year, it just hasn't been a proven fly for me personally.
Are you fishing?
So I tied a box of them, 4 years ago. And I think I've only lost like 3 flies.
Are you doing the ice fishing in one of those tents? Or are you just drilling and moving?
I'm drilling and moving. We usually drill between 12 and 30-something holes. And I have a hand auger, so that's how I stay warm. But last year I bought a tent for when the kids go. But it turned into they just want to bring their iPads and sit in the tent. If they don't catch it.
Grumpy old men?
I've watched it. It's been a few years, though.
I think my kid needs to see that one. She's all about Legally Blonde right now.
No, that's a good one, too.
Bend and snap. She says I do the best bend and snap. I'm like, great.
But I'd like to get it to where, I see those guys out in like the Great Lakes where they got a hut out there and they're watching TV and got the grills out there. Yeah. We don't have that safe of ice here. But I think that's on my bucket list. I want to go do that.
I need to do that with my cousin Caleb on Lake Erie sometime. He loves hard water. That's his jam. He just waits for that freeze every year.
Yeah, it's I used to think it was the most boring thing in the world because I'd go out occasionally. And then I purchased a flasher, which some may argue that's cheating.
What is a flasher?
What?
Besides someone that exposes themselves. I don't know the term flasher.
Flasher is basically fish sonar. And so you drop this sonar cone into your hole or to another hole opposing, and it shows you everything that's beneath you. And you can fine tune it so that, your little size 18 zebra midge barely shows up. So anything on the radar is bigger than that.
Interesting.
And you can see structure. You can see a lot of different things depending on which one you buy. And I use that information. I guess you'd say that ice fishing on some lakes here is recon for spring fishing. Because I'll go through and I'll see, okay, here's the ledge. I know where it's at.
Go map
so in the spring, this is where it's going to be. And so we do a lot. Like I found one of my best honey holes at a local lake, ice fishing. And then the summertime, it has been, I've never not left there with a 20-plus inch cutthroat.
Oh.
Not that I took one. I usually catch and release, but, there hasn't been a time I haven't caught one over 20, which is kind of awesome at that lake.
I saw you caught a rainbow and put it in your logoed mug and shook it up the other day. Something came out.
Oh, that was fun. That was the kids. We were doing TikToks. So.
Oh, that's See, I don't know about the TikTok. My kid's not old enough, and I don't partake in it.
Yeah, we went through a phase, I think during COVID, where we had a lot. My my kids and I, we were making TikToks, and then what's funny is my 9-year-old, we made that fish one because he thought it was a funny idea. Like, he laughs for days every time he sees it. But then my 7-year-old, I don't know why he hadn't seen it, and I showed it to him, and he goes, "Oh, Dad, that's how you get all the fish skins on. We should go catch a brook trout or a tiger trout, and then that way we have a Traeger mug." And I'm like, "You are not my kid."
That's funny.
Yeah, so we have a little bit of fun with those.
And with
But
the
I think
social
for
media,
that,
do companies see you and throw stuff your way for you to use to promote?
sometimes, yeah. Like there's some companies that reach out and say, "Hey, if I send you this, will you use it?" And I say, "If I like it." Like, I'm pretty upfront. If I don't like something, I'm not going to post about it. But when I think I post daily, sometimes multiple times. You know, it's not that I'm always looking for content, but I love new product. Like, it's an addiction for me. So if someone sends out an email, "Hey, this is a new product," I've already probably ordered it, like, right then. Like, I just love new product to see how you can apply that to a lot of different flies you already fish, or a new tool. Is it going to be better than what I'm using? And so sometimes companies want to send me it. Other times they, I just order it. So yeah, I get sent some stuff sometimes, and I'm on a few pro teams, and part of those agreements, sometimes you have deals where you get a discount, or a yearly package, or a quarterly package type deal. So,
Any of your favorite products that you've tested out that you just absolutely endorse?
oh, there's a lot of, product out there. I mean, when you're talking like feathers, like, I've tried a bunch of different brands, a bunch of different companies. Whiting Farms is by far the most durable quality feathers and hackle I think I've used. And that's not because I'm on their pro team, but like, there's nothing worse than I bought a freaking, saddle to do a game changer, and half the stems are breaking as you're tying it.
Oh, that would piss me off.
Oh yeah, like, you prep the feather, tie it in, and you're tying in 40 to 80 feathers, and every time you tie in 2 or 3 at a time, and they break off, and it's not, I've tied enough flies to know it's not my thread tension that's cutting the stem, it's the hackle. The stem is crusty or old, or was dyed wrong, or I don't. That's the part of the industry I don't know of how to. Like I said, I don't process my own feathers or hair. I know there's a process to it, but I don't know if it's just the one I got. But that's why I stick with whiting now on most of my stuff. Semperfly, their Nano Silk,
Unbelievable. The 12
is what turned me on to them, along with their straggle string. It adds hints of UV, and that Nano Silk, you don't have to worry about. I mean, it's sad when I say this, you don't have to worry about thread tension, because you can put an 18-aught Nano Silk in a bobbin and give it to anybody, and it's going to be really hard for them to break unless they hit a hook point.
I was using some 12-aught black Nano Silk last week to tie up Traco spinners with a little bit of foam on them to keep them up. Yeah, this stuff's amazing. It makes my fingers black, though. Mine are kind of old. I don't know if they've updated them, but...
Yeah, so that was when they got a kind of a bad... it's a lot of people in the beginning, when I was wanting the Nano Silk, they talked negatively about the dyeing. And that's since being on their team now, they updated us last year. Let's see, yeah, about a year ago, that they are no longer producing the Nano Silk outside of their control. Like, before, I think somebody else was producing it, and then they were spooling it. I can't remember. But now it's all in-house, and the new stuff doesn't ever dye. I haven't had any rub off, or, sometimes your white bobbin tip goes orange or pink or whatever color the silk was you were using. I haven't had that issue in a long time. So that might be your stock, since they've changed that. But it's amazing stuff. Looking around, there's a lot. Like, I love Fish Hunter Marabou. I think Nature Spirit puts that out. They've got a new product I didn't even know existed, was that stimulator deer hair. It's perfect. And and then like their spinning hair is amazing. Like, it's stuff that I never tried, but then when you're spinning deer hair and you use the spinning hair, it's cleaner. It spins it just flares like amazing. And before I was trying to, use these bulk patches I found somewhere, and it made it more difficult to tie the fly, and I struggled through it and I hated it. But then when I used the correct material, or a better material, it made it easy. It made it fun. And so it's finding that product that works for you that makes it a lot easier. Like, I just tied up a bunch of gurglers, and I was sick of just going through so much craft fur. And I went into my shop and I'm like, hey, there's got to be a substitute. And we looked around for a while, and finally we found a synthetic yak hair, and it's perfect. And it saved me a ton of time tying up that order. So.
You said tying up an order, so you do some commercial stuff as well?
Not really. I don't, this was for a personal friend that was going up to Alaska on a trip. I have some flies on my website, but most of the time they're out of stock, because if I'm tying flies for someone else, that means I'm not fishing or spending time with my kids. So I just had so many requests for certain flies, so I just threw them up on the website, and there's shirts and stuff that people want. And that way, when someone says, hey, how much for some of your flies? I go, here's the website. Well, I don't see these flies on there. Well, that's because I'm not going to tie them. I don't, a fly that takes me an hour and a half to tie, I know you're not going to want to buy it.
And with that, t-shirts and stuff, you also do tying contests.
Yeah, I kind of did those
year?
So that's the other thing. I reached a point where my wife, companies were sending me stuff, and I'm like, hey, I don't need anything. I want to pay you for it because I'm a small business owner. I'm not out there for free product, or, I'm not going to say, hey, if you send me this product, I'll post it on my page type scenario, because there's a lot of that out there. But at one point I was sitting there, and I'd gotten like 3 packages that day or something, just small stuff. And then the next day, another package came, and I'm like, you know what, there's so many guys out there that, I'm really, really blessed that this is happening to me. And I go, there's got to be a way to give back. And so I did, basically I said, okay, there's fly contest, but I go, this has got to be epic. We got to make the prize pack awesome. And so I reached out to a few companies. I said, hey, I want to buy this for this contest. And just so letting I don't want to have anyone follow or do anything like that. I just want somebody to tie a fly, enjoy tying a fly that they're not used to tying, for a chance to win this, epic package. And they were like, some were like, hey, we'll just send it to you. Others were like, okay, yeah, cool. Because, I'm not expecting anything, because I'm not, we're asking anyone to follow you. And that's potentially why people do giveaways, is so they get followers. But we did it. It was a lot of fun. The winner was perfect. It made my day hearing the backstory on him, and it made me want to do another one. And it was a lot of fun. That spooky streamer contest was a lot of fun. There were some really talented people that came out of the woodworks, tying different flies than they usually tie. And that's kind of what I enjoy doing. So it was fun seeing that. But I know there's a lot of people that don't enjoy seeing that, because why tie a fly that you're not going to fish, or, it's too arts and craftsy. But I think it's all about having fun and using those techniques to see if you can create something that you didn't ever think you could create. And then that builds confidence in your tying skills. Like taking rabbit and making a freaking werewolf with claws. I mean, that was amazing.
There's some creative people out there that do some insane things.
Yeah, and it's fun seeing those people, and you don't see them because of the dumb algorithm. All I see is the big companies all the time on my feed.
So if I were to go to Instagram and just hit the magnifying glass, it's all just like hoochie mamas and women in bikinis fishing.
Yeah.
And you're like, why is there an over-sexualization I'd rather see people tying flies, not...
Well, and you don't even see your friends that fish, So there's definitely something with that. and I don't get it. I don't get into the quote unquote algorithm. You know, Instagram used to be a lot more fun when it was chronological. Then now it's, you know, you have to see the popular post or what they want you to see. Whatever. I'm always up in the air on whether I'm just going to get off or not.
Are there any people you suggest listeners follow on Instagram?
Oh, shoot. Just, yeah, I mean, go to who I follow and look through the list. There's a lot of talented tires out there, a lot of fun people out there. I don't necessarily have, you know, a top 10 list, but, you know, I'm not saying that I'm a good judge of skill by looking at Instagram, but, you know, I follow some really quality tires. So if you're looking for some inspiration, you know, scroll through who I follow. I've done that with some of the tires that I respect. I see who they follow, and you meet some new people that way.
Nice. Very cool. Are there any posts that get you more likes, more followers than others?
Like,
did you post something and then you're like, wow, that one really got some attention versus one that just kind of,
you know, there's sometimes I do look at that. I'll be honest, I don't look at engaged, you know, the insights as much as some people do, because I just post what I want to post. But there's sometimes, like, for example, last night I had this idea, and I go, hey babe, tomorrow you're gonna help me do a TikTok. I go, it's gonna go crazy, and she's like, no, we're not doing TikToks tomorrow. I go, no, I need your help. I got this idea. And so in my mind, I think it's gonna be funny to see how many comments or people like, ha ha ha, you know. But I wouldn't necessarily do it for, you know, the likes or it's just a spoof on what some people take serious in the industry that I guess I don't.
Do you ever take pictures with rods on your shoulders?
In the beginning I did, yeah. I had a few of those, and then I realized, like, why? And now it's funny because I don't even take a lot of pictures when I go out fishing anymore. It's just kind of, you know, if it's a really nice fish, then oh yeah, or if it's got like some, you know, unique feature about the fish, then I do. And occasionally I have to post some pictures of fishing because I need credibility as a tire, I guess, is what the messages say. So I throw a random fish in there every now and then, but most of those are for, you know, stay on my camera roll or get text to a few buddies, and, you know, mainly to protect the water and also the flies that we are tying up that never make it to, you know, social media.
Right. Let's talk about Traegering now. Do we cover everything about fly tying? I mean, there's a lot to cover.
Oh, there's a ton to cover.
Yeah.
But yeah.
You want to talk Traegers?
Sure. I love Traegers.
What model Traeger do you have?
So I just got the Ironwood 885.
So that's big. You can put like a whole pig or goat in there, right?
I don't know about a whole pig or goat. It's not. So before that, I had the big Texas, and I think I could do a small pig in that. I don't know. I've never really tried a whole pig. And then before that, or the big Tex was my first one. I've got the tailgater, which I still have. But the Ironwood is their new technology. It's got the you know, the wireless Wi-Fi, so it connects to my app, so I can adjust the temperature while I'm sitting on the couch. It's got the pellet sensor, so it alerts me when it's getting low. And it is amazing to see the difference in the technology over the years, because I think my big Tex was from 7-8 years ago. And now it's almost like they've changed the way the smoke funnels through, because before it used to come through the, you know, out through the hopper to the burner, and then, you know, come up through the barrel and then out the exhaust, is it called? I'm not sure on that. But now it's almost like a freaking convection oven. So when I first got it, I did some kebabs, and they were the best I've ever done. And it was way easier. So today we're going to be actually I did El Pastor tacos a few weeks ago.
Wow.
And today we're going to try it with, we're going to do like an chicken fajita tower. And so that's what we're going to try today. Something we've never done before, but that's what the wife, we're basically going to do some tacos and carve it off like you would a kebab, you know?
Oh my goodness.
But I love Traegers. It's great. It's a great company. They're based out of Utah. So.
Yeah. Have you ever made armadillo eggs?
No, I haven't.
That is jalapeno popper wrapped in sausage, wrapped in bacon, barbecue sauce coated, and cooked for like 3 hours.
You got my email. Send me that recipe.
Yeah, it is unbelievable. We just make them. Our neighbors just, I'm like, hey man, just drop off the stuff and I'll cook it for you. So I made a whole lamb shoulder the other day for one neighbor. And then my other neighbor, Jamie, dropped off stuff to make 8 armadillo eggs for her. I'm like, you buy it, I'll cook it. Oh, they are unbelievable. My wife just said, find something that's not chicken thighs or, you know, smoked flank steak. And I found that. I was like, yeah. And then tomorrow,
I just Googled it, and I am definitely going to be trying that. That looks amazing.
I used the hay grill hay recipe. But
that's the one that came up first.
Yeah. Uncle Boone's Thai roast chicken is what I'm doing tomorrow. So I got to brine that chicken tonight.
But yeah, no, I love Traeger. I mean, it's, you know, I post about it quite a bit because that's what I do usually on Sundays. Call it, and, you know, this is non-official, but quote unquote, the crock pot for men.
Yeah.
Because you set it and walk away.
Do you have a name for yours?
No, it's so new that I don't think I've never named mine.
For the Bluetooth, mine is Meat Sweats Machine, but I want to change it to The Rock. So then I can say, people are like, I smell the food from up the street. I'm like, you smell what The Rock's cooking.
Oh, that's the best thing I think I've heard all day.
So we've named our sourdough starter Tina because of Napoleon Dynamite, because you have to feed. So my wife's like, go feed Tina.
Oh, man, you should move out here. I think we could be best friends.
Yeah. Traeger parties. All right, I got some random questions now just to round things off with. What's the strangest thing you've ever found while fishing?
I found a lot of strange things. I still don't know how I was able to reel in a buoy that was sunk without my line breaking. Like, it was not just that. I think I still have a picture of it. It was literally a water buoy that had sunk, filled with concrete, and I somehow reeled it in. I think that was kind of weird.
Yeah.
But in contrast, I think the scariest thing I think I ever found was we was fishing with my boys, and we were kind of focusing on river cleanup that day, and we found 12 or 15 syringes in a pack. I'll be honest, that was kind of scary to me because my boy was the one that picked it up.
Oh boy.
But I just said, that's when I kind of got more focused on, when I'm out trying to leave it better than, it was when we got there. Always leave with a net full of trash if you can. And, that was kind of, I didn't like that day, but that was probably the scariest thing I found in the water or near the water, because it was 8 feet from the water, just right there out in the open. So.
What's something you won't eat?
Bad food. Oh. If I don't like it, I won't even continue eating it.
There's nothing like specific that your wife just knows not to bring into the house?
Shellfish I'm allergic to, so she knows not to bring that into the house.
You're in the mountains too. There's not much shellfish around.
Yeah, no, but I'll be honest. We've been over in Japan, and when they have like octopus legs or the suckers that have the scorpions in, we have that here. I don't care to eat octopus or bugs or squid that's still alive. I don't care to eat the weird stuff.
Dig it.
But I know people really love it, and they think it's awesome and tastes good, but I don't even care to try it. So I'm not afraid to say, nope, I'm good. I'm like, no, I'm not going to eat it.
If you could only eat one soup for the rest of your life, what soup would it be?
My favorite soup is clam chowder, but I'm allergic. So one soup, I'd probably say my wife, she makes a homemade chicken noodle soup that is served over mashed potatoes.
What?
It's her grandma's recipe.
Oh my goodness.
It's literally my favorite thing. I look forward to it all winter. Or her dad has a white chili recipe, or my mom's chili. Those are, because chili could be considered soup, right?
Yeah.
Maybe that's a stretch. So we'll stick with the chicken noodle soup.
Okay. If you could fish with any pioneer of fly fishing that's alive or dead, who would you choose?
Wow, that's tough. You know what? I don't know. I don't think there's any one individual, because I just like going with anybody. I don't know on that one. Like, I don't have like a bucket list of people. I'd say just, I don't know. I'll pass.
Okay. Favorite Harrison Ford movie?
I don't know, man. Air Force One was pretty hardcore.
Nice. What's your favorite hatch?
I'd say the evening caddis hatch.
Let's say I've got a plane gassed up at the airport nearest you with enough fuel to go anywhere in the world. Where are we going fishing?
Or where are we going? Or we have to go fishing, or can we just go anywhere?
Well, we can go anywhere.
I don't know. There's so many great waters here locally that, I don't know. Right now, I've got redfish on the mind. I want to go red fishing, so I'd say Louisiana. But I know if it's going anywhere, I'd have to think bigger destination. So, let's just go somewhere tropical.
I could use a nice tropical drink these days.
Yeah.
Let's see. What item, if you left behind on a fishing trip, would just ruin your day?
My day would be ruined if I lost my boat box.
You got your name written on it? Address?
Dude, the flies, people know. People will know. No, I've had fears because I used to just take boxes for, like, say I was going to go fish the caddis hatch or, something, or I was going to go fish streamers. I'd only take like 1 or 2 boxes. And then I kept getting to places and not having what I need. So now I take 80% of my flies in one box. And it's my fear of losing that box that I would die.
I've lost a couple full fly boxes. It's horrific.
Yeah. But see, then I would look at it as an opportunity to start over and get rid of all those flies that I know don't work.
Yeah.
Or never were effective. And it'd be depressing to retie everything.
So Art, who does a frequent interview with me, we're going to do terrestrials next week podcast. He had his car broken into, and someone took all his flies, like all his fishing gear. So he's like, well, going to get some new boxes and start over again. So I think yesterday he did 50 Pat's rubber legs.
Yeah. See, I'm trying to replenish just my leech box right now and add like what I want. It takes forever. Like when you're thinking about starting a whole new box, like I'm probably going to have like 400 or 500 in here.
Wow.
So a few different boxes, and it just blows my mind. Like it takes forever. You don't think about it.
All right. Second to last question. Is there a fly fishing book you recommend to everyone listening?
Oh, shoot. Depends on what you're tying. I've steered people towards some of Charlie Craven's books because they're very, very instructional. I love, if you're doing poppers, there's a book, Designing Poppers and Sliders and Divers. That's very, very, it's like the encyclopedia for poppers. But yeah, I mean, just for tying flies, Charlie Craven has like 3 books out that I think are amazing.
Yeah, I've got
a lot of great patterns in there, good instructional ones for the beginner or the experienced tyer.
Okay. And to finish off the podcast, I need a story that you had to have been there to believe. Fishing, non-fishing related, just one of those craziest things you've ever seen.
Ooh. Craziest thing I've ever seen that you wouldn't believe.
I once saw a kangaroo try to jump over a fence in Australia, and it caught its feet, and it tripped and rolled about 4 or 5 times. And I was like, why did I not have my camera rolling at that moment? That would have been YouTube gold, and no one else saw it but me.
You know, it's not related to fishing or anything, and I don't have the video anymore. I don't want to talk negatively about my middle child, but it just blew my mind, the thought process going through his head on this one. So we used to have a metal swing set, that it's got swings, a slide, and you crawl up these bars to get up to the tower type thing. It's 6 feet off the ground.
Typical backyard play set.
Yeah. And the bars are, it's heavy duty. So, you got to climb 4 to 5 bars to get up to the little platform. My boy, we were teaching him how to potty train. And he, for some reason, I told him, I said, hey, when you're outside, you can go pee on bushes or, trees or anything, but just not concrete, or a house. We went through the list of things you can and can't pee on. And he was like, okay. So he comes in crying, bloody murder. And we couldn't figure out what was going on. And at the time, I didn't think to save the footage. But my wife did see it, so it is believable, and I have a witness. But he sat there, and he's playing by himself in the backyard, and then he takes down his pants, and he pees all over these metal bars. Then he walks up to he goes up a level, and then pees on that bar, and goes up a level, and pees on that bar, and then gets down. And I'm just like, what is going through his head? Because right after that, he goes and walks up it and puts his hand and feet in the pee. And as he gets up to the 3rd bar, he slips, falls backwards, bends in half, lands on his neck. So he does this total flip backwards, hitting the bars and then landing on the grass. And it was one of those things that was just oh my gosh, how is he still alive? But then how is he so, what was his thought process of peeing on something and then climbing right up where you just peed on? So it kind of blew my mind, but we were laughing about it, and he's fine, and he was fine, but it's the middle kid. I can't believe what's going through his head.
My neighbors always talk about the middle kid.
Is that what it is? It's the middle kid?
Yeah, I think so.
Because he's definitely got a lot of stories with him.
All right, dude. Well, this has been fascinating. I'm glad we got a chance to sit down and learn a little bit more about you. Where can people find you if they are not following you currently on social media or any other platforms?
I think that's pretty much it. Svend Diesel's Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok. SvendDiesel.com is the website.
Where did the diesel come from?
Came from high school flag football. I don't know how, but we I wasn't big enough to play football in high school, and so we played flag football, which was a lot more fun.
Were you 6 feet plus in high school?
Made some jerseys, and one of them just said Diesel on the back, and I took that one. And then my middle name was Sven, and then at the time the Fast and the Furious series had just started, and so kind of everyone started calling me Svend Diesel. And then in college, a roommate, that's all he calls me still to this day. And so that's where it kind of came from. So Sven's my middle name, and Diesel was just the jersey I picked up to play football in.
Very cool. All right. Well, also, thanks for doing this early on a Sunday morning.
No, I appreciate you doing it early. My kids are still asleep, so it worked out perfect for me, too.
Yeah, my kid got up at 6 today. What are you thinking?
That's how it always goes. I'm surprised. Usually when I have something scheduled, they wake up and they're just causing noise, but they're still asleep. So
wow, good for you. All right, Sven, we'll see you online.
Yeah, appreciate you having me on. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for the Fly Fishing Consultant Podcast. For more information or to contact Rob, please go to www.robsnowhite.com. This podcast is brought to you by Freestone Productions at freestoneproductions.com.